So speaking of President Trump, let's get you what's the latest, because as the war continues, it's been over 2 months now. US President Donald Trump says that Washington's blockade of the Iranian ports has been a success and has urged Tehran to just give up. Iran's military, however, has warned of unprecedented action if the US blockade continues, saying that the restraint shown by the armed forces so far has been intended to give diplomacy a chance.
President, regarding Iran, how long are you prepared to maintain the blockade? Could that go several more months?
Well, the blockade is genius, okay? The blockade has been 100% foolproof. It shows how good our Navy is, I can tell you that. Nobody's going to play games. We have the greatest military in the world, and I built much of it during my first term, and we've been building it since. And the greatest anywhere in the world, nobody even close. And you see that, whether it's Venezuela, and they have a good military in Venezuela, but it was over in one day. It was actually over in about 48 minutes. Iran, the same thing. I mean, militarily, we've wiped them out. They have no military left. It's all the Navy's at the bottom of the sea. The Air Force is never going to fly again. We've got an amazing military. Now they have to cry uncle. That's all they have to do. Just say, we give up. We give up. But their economy is really in trouble. So it's a dead economy.
So will Operation Fury and the blockade get Iran to nuclear talks fast enough, or do you think another wave of strikes will be necessary?
I don't know. It depends. We have talks. We're having talks with them now, and we're not flying anymore with 18-hour flights every time we want to see a piece of paper. We're doing it telephonically, and it's very nice. I make a call, or I have my people make a call, and you know the answer. I always like face-to-face. I consider it better. But when you have to fly 18 hours every time you want to have a meeting, and you know what the meeting's all about, and you know they're going to give you a piece of paper that you don't like before you even leave, it's ridiculous. They've come a long way. The question is whether or not they're going to go far enough. So at this moment, there will never be a deal unless they agree that there will be no nuclear weapons.
Also, naval blockade to be a genius move, but as he continues with that blockade, Tehran has now threatened to launch an attack. A big warning that is coming from the Iranian Navy chief, saying that they will soon reveal a weapon that they'll deeply fear and right on their doorstep. Well, this is now coming in from Iran. They're saying a retaliation is likely. But Tehran, however, is not ready to concede the ground on Strait of Hormuz, as Trump indicates, of a continued blockade. A study by a think tank, an Institute for the Study of War, has pointed out that Tehran is unlikely to bend any further in its fresh proposals to the US on the Strait of Hormuz, and what is being said as far as the hardline position that has been advocated by the IRGC. They now seem to be dominating the point of view of Tehran. And the analysis says that Iran appears unwilling to concede control over the Strait of Hormuz and Iran's nuclear program, and mainstream Iranian politicians are consolidating around this decision to avoid discussion on the nuclear issue before the United States lifts the naval blockade on Iranian ports, which was IRGC's preferred policy outcome. So let's connect with Srinjoy and Mayank, both of them joining us here on the broadcast. Good morning to you. Srinjoy, the better understanding, because here is coming in from Iran, as far as Strait of Hormuz is concerned, the leverage, the benefit and the advantage Iran will continue to seek. But when it comes to its nuclear program, it is not ready to give up on that either.
First of all, the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranians have weaponized. And 2 months ago, no one ever spoke of the Strait of Hormuz. But now that it's been weaponized, it becomes an issue. Now, this will continue to be so, because if the blockade by the Americans continue, what the Iranians will do is stop the traffic of tankers from other people, the UAE, the Saudis, Bahrain, Kuwait, and so on. Now, these are all allies of the United States. So it will hurt the Gulf states quite badly. That's really the first point. Secondly, this to and fro is being called a fog of peace. You've had fogs of war, but this really is a fog of peace, because no one can actually work out what's happening on the ground, because Trump says something, the Iranians say something else, Trump says something else again, the Iranians repeat something else. So as a result, there does not appear to be a solution at this point. Now, how long this peace will continue, what it will lead to, we don't know. But what is very clear is if the Iranians are attacked, if their oil installations, their pipelines, their oil wells are attacked, then Iran could do the same with the Gulf states. It could attack the UAE, it could attack Saudi, and they have. I think Bahrain, one refinery was attacked once. Saudi, one refinery was attacked once. But this could escalate. The other thing is the desalination plants. Now,
well, that seems to be the very lifelines of Iran, as you're pointing out. You know, if they are hit, then Iran will go all out. And it seems if there is a, military strike, if it resumes, it's going to be deadlier than the 40 days strikes that has been witnessed from both sides. And of course, the global impact is something that is being witnessed already. But, there is another breaking update we are picking up according to reports, because there are commanders who are briefing President Trump on their other military options. Because President Trump says that 70-75% of the military, objectives that has been fulfilled, but there are several more targets that they have not attacked yet. And this is what President Trump has been talking about, seeing the blockade to be his primary source of leverage. So blockade on both sides, Mayank. The Strait of Hormuz blocked by Iran, that sees it as its own leverage. The Strait of Hormuz beyond the blockade of Navy of the US, Trump is now considering that to calling it as a genius move.
So there is complete blockade and there had been no movement, and both sides have dug in their heel and they are not allowing any kind of a movement. That's the truth which is happening or which is taking place in this side. Now coming to the military aspect, the air options have been used right from the beginning and maritime forces were never moved that side. So if that is the kind of a thought which is going on, we will definitely see certain kind of a capability which may not have been used from Iran's side. Iran has proven time and again that they can ingress the best of the air defense systems which are across the region. And they had, in a way, put the pressure by hitting the installations, which could be energy installations or the bases of the US, which were in Middle East. Also, while we were reporting from ground from Israel, there were lots of ingresses of the air defenses that side also. Why am I bringing all this is actually to prove a point. And also one more point, while we were leaving Israel, there were lots of discussions on issues that Iran might have saved certain kind of weaponry, which includes missile and drones, which might be even deadlier, and that would be for do and die situation. Why am I bringing all this is actually to paint a picture wherein we can understand that there would be options.
Well, let me speak to the experts in this case. Mayank, please to stay on with us. Apologies for interrupting you. Major General Asthana sir is connected with us. Sir, good morning. What is your understanding? Will the military action resume in West Asia?
See, President Trump has left with very less choices because President Trump, in case he moves out with anything less than what was achieved in JCPOA, then he will find himself very difficult to navigate in the midterm elections. So he needs that Iran must compromise firstly on the nuclear issue. And Iran is saying that we will not talk about that, or we will talk about that later. First remove the blockade. Now blockade is the only perhaps leverage which President Trump thinks is available to him. Now the second option, as far as getting back to war and bombing campaign and military action, is that there is a cost involved. And with the kind of bombardment which was done earlier, whatever establishments which are outside, most of them have been destroyed. Now whatever is left is which is inside the tunnels or inside the folds of the mountains, and therefore subsequent bombing is only going to perhaps cause more casualties or destroy critical infrastructure, for which Iran can also respond because they have the option of either snapping sea cables or blocking Red Sea. Now, both these are dangerous options. And same is the case with the perhaps any ground action, because ground action again is going to be very costly in terms of casualties. So I think he is actually stuck between the rock and the hard place for the simple reason because
to get over as soon as possible, but outside he seems to be projecting that he is in no rush and saying that the naval blockade will continue till the time Iran actually concedes to their demands. Iran, however, has been also unwilling. Thank you very much, Asthana sir, to you, Mayank and Srinjoy as well for joining us here on the broadcast.